Welcome, everybody, to the Minions of the Zoo Tuesday edition. I'm your keeper, Skep, and with me I have Minions Prospero.
Hello.
And the Harry Channel.
Good evening.
And it's kind of a skeleton crew tonight. Hope that everybody is well. Prospero, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. Not getting things done at a quick pace.
You're still in the getting ready to move kind of thing.
I'm getting ready to get ready to move. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. It's like, what do I start first that isn't going to cause a cascading nightmare of other things that?
Oh, I know.
Or wait, should I do that before this? Some of it is just ordering priorities, and there are a lot of things that are going to need attending to. So that's taking some. I'm lazy, you see, and if I order things as efficiently as possible, I don't have to spend as much time doing them and have more time to sit on my fat ass.
Oh.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine. It's just kind of a chore day. I'm getting like a 2-week break from the being a school teacher, and as the young gentleman in question, the grandson, is on a trip to Oregon for a couple of weeks to visit some family up there. I've discussed with some of you. We had a death. Actually, his second cousin died, and but anyway, the family's kind of getting together up there. That part of the family, and he wanted to go up there because he's close with some of them. And the great thing about homeschooling is you can homeschool from anywhere as long as you have an adult to help homeschool. And so he's not missing any study time, just flew up on the weekend, and he's doing his lessons during the day and hanging out with his cousins. So I get a break for a couple of weeks.
Excellent.
And I hardly know what to do with myself. So I've busied myself around the house doing mundane things. And I know this kind of content is why everybody tunes into Minions of the Zoo. It's this kind of riveting, domestic. It makes Ozzy and Harriet look like the Matrix. But anyway, Harry, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I
have an entire implementation of OpenStack, which is this big open standard private cloud thing, running on a server not too far from my desk, so hopefully you can't hear it. The thing is, it's all crammed, all of these pieces that would normally go on about at least 7 things are crammed onto one box, so if I turn this thing off, bad things will happen. I'll have to redo a bunch of it. It's literally like duct tape and baling wire, the way I've got this thing together, but I got to prototype some stuff while I'm waiting on hardware.
Have you got auxiliary power supplies piped into it to get the current that you need to run all that?
Well, my whole house is an auxiliary power supply.
I know. Just run it straight in from the roof.
Yeah, so it's not like in the movie Sully, where the engines are all screwed up and you have to fire up the APUs. They have like whole separate generators that supply power to the hydraulics and stuff. It's pretty cool how aviation works.
Yeah, it's smart of them to do that, since they found that having no redundancy to hydraulics can cause problems.
Yeah. Push harder.
The Sioux City crash really taught them a lot about that. It was amazing that they brought that in largely in one piece.
It is. It's to this day. It's both awe-inspiring and maddening at that last second to see that wingtip.
Oh yeah,
because they were so close to having it down. Unscathed. Yeah. And it was one of those, please, oh shit. Oh wow. When it turned out that the survival on a otherwise doomed aircraft.
There's no way that aircraft lands with any survivors. That was an amazing thing.
It was.
Most interesting thing, since we're talking about it, were the dynamics between the crew, just the way that they cooperated with one another.
Yes, and
was absolutely phenomenal.
Having someone on board who was intimately familiar with how to try to operate an aircraft of that size without.
Having the instructor pilot, just have to be sitting in first class.
I'll kneel between the two seats and I'll handle the engines. Thrust for you. And it's like, because you're busy doing other things. It's just extraordinary.
The interesting thing.
What happened?
Hello. We're talking about the Sioux City
United Airlines crash many years ago, in the 80s, wasn't it? And
late 80s, early 90s, I think.
I was a small child.
I can't remember. I remember seeing an anniversary thing because the pilot was, whether it was a 5-year anniversary or a 1-year anniversary.
1989.
89.
July 19th, 1989.
Yeah.
So it was a DC10. It was crash landed at Sioux City. It was going from Denver to O'Hare, and the tail-mounted engine had what they call a catastrophic failure. It means it busted itself all to flinders, and there was shrapnel going through all the hydraulic lines. So they lost hydraulic pressure, which meant they couldn't control the control surfaces. So the only control they had of the airplane was to vary the thrust of the two remaining engines. And you can do that if you're really, really good. You can kind of crudely position the airplane. You can get it to descend, and you can even get it to climb. But they found that they could only make left turns. They actually had to manage a couple of right turns, and they did that. It was extremely dangerous to do that. It's a great story. Anyway, I recommend it to everybody. But they had 296 passengers aboard, and 184 of those people survived. And there should have been no survivors. That thing should have fallen out of the sky like a brick and crashed. It was just an amazing job by the crew to bring that in. All of the crew in the cockpit incidentally survived.
Yeah,
they were injured, but they survived.
What happened is the cockpit broke free.
Yeah, it did.
And it was first class that got hamburgered. The plane broke in 3 pieces, and it was that center section. The cockpit slid free, and it was the early part of coach and first class that took the brunt of the crash, and the back of the plane just kind of coasted to a stop.
But anyway, despite the
it is weird.
It's considered a prime example of what they call successful crew resource management because of the large number of survivors and the manner in which the flight crew handled the emergency and landed the airplane without the conventional control. They, fortunately happened to have, the two pilots, the pilot and co-pilot, were very experienced, and so was the flight engineer, and then they had a training check, what amounts to an instructor pilot named Dennis Fitch, who was he was just a passenger.
Yes,
and he'd been, and he had, 3,000. He was a captain of a DC-10, although he'd spent most of his time as a first officer, but he was just knew the stuff cold. And between the bunch of them, make a long story short, they managed to land it and worked extremely well with each other. And it was kind of, in spite of the deaths, it was a very positive story. It was just an amazing story of survival.
Well, the people who survived the crash just thought the absolute world of the
oh my goodness
flight crew, because everybody on the plane kind of ended up knowing what had happened.
Yeah.
And,
well, how would you not?
And that they were in deep shit. And so it was...
One of my favorite passenger story from that is the guy who was in the tail section, unbuckled his seatbelt, walked off the plane, walked into the terminal, walked into a bar, and started doing shots. They found him in there, drunk as a lord. And people were saying, hey, yeah, this guy was on the plane, and because he got interviewed by one of the local stations, and I understand it was a pretty hilarious interview.
Yeah, for the circumstance.
I have to say, as a non-drinker, I agree with what he did.
It was medicinal.
I can see that the man needed to settle his nerves.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So
I don't think you should leave a crime or incident scene, though.
Well, I think they wanted to count heads, obviously, afterwards, and so they started searching. And hey, here's a dude who's just in the bar. When you don't have the control surfaces, a DC10 wants to invert. That's a bad thing. If you want to land, it wants to fly upside down, and it will naturally tend to do a 180 degree barrel roll, and that was one of the big concerns that they had. Anyway, but I didn't mean to get off into that. As usual, we picked it apart. Welcome to Tangents of the Zoo.
Tangents of the Zoo. That really is.
I thought it was interesting.
Well, thank you. One of the things I did think was an interesting thing that we might take a look at is the different reactions from different parts of the news media to the Gabby Potito story, where this young lady, Gabby Potito, was evidently killed, they believe murdered, by someone else up in a national park.
By Brian.
They believe that her fiance, with whom she was a van life YouTuber, they had pretty considerable following, and they would post these, we live in a van and we're going to this beautiful place, kind of like Wonder Hussy, only this was a couple, and but it turned out that they had some sort of a disagreement, fight, and this may have been a regular thing, and something happened and she wound up dead. They just found her body and they can't find him. They're trying to locate him. They believe he's might be somewhere on the East Coast. But anyway, getting back to this, the interesting thing was how many people jumped on this, how quickly to make a buck, or to push their causes, and some of the causes are, probably quite noble. I don't think John Walsh is a bad guy, but he was on this story with unseemly haste, in my opinion. And as opposed to somebody like Joy Reid, who is a columnist for the Washington Post, who came out and essentially said that, why do we care? Why do we care about, white girls more than we do about, why do we care this much about minorities who get killed? That was basically.
You're not allowed to talk about it. If you talk about black on black crime or Hispanic on Hispanic, whatever, it's, oh, how dare you bring up.
Well, yeah, I'll just read this. MSNBC's Joy Reid offered her take on the focus placed on the Gabby Potito case, calling it missing white woman syndrome. Reid mentioned other instances of the syndrome, including Natalie Holloway and Lacey Peterson, white women who, died in bad circumstances, and the media went into a frenzy over it. And she said, in fairness to Joy Reid, she said the Potito family certainly deserves answers and justice. But she was decrying the what she regarded as inconsistent media coverage. And she evidently remains found in Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park were confirmed as Potito on Tuesday. Her boyfriend, with the unfortunate name of Brian Laundrie, who has been named as a person of interest in her disappearance and apparent death, went missing after refusing to speak to investigators. I'm sure he didn't do it. He probably just had some pressing engagement and he was too busy to talk to him. The way the story was captivated the nation, Reid told her viewers, has many wondering why not the same media attention when people of color go missing. I didn't realize we didn't have that. Okay, well, the answer actually has a name: missing white woman syndrome, the term coined by the late and great Gwen Ifill to describe the media and public fascination with missing white women like Lacey Peterson and Natalie Holloway, while ignoring cases involving people of color. And while noting the inconsistencies in the media's coverage of Americans gone missing, Reid acknowledged the sadness of the Potito case. It goes without saying that no family should ever endure that type of pain, and the Potito family certainly deserves answers and justice. So, but there was kind of a huge but at the end of that, and Reid's gigantic but was to say that this is missing white woman syndrome, and that women of color don't get this kind of attention. Why are we giving it to this white woman? With the implication, to me at least, that it's because she is white, I guess. And they, on Reid's weekday show on Monday, panelists include somebody I don't care about and another person I don't care about. They pointed out a case of a missing 24-year-old young black man who disappeared after a car crash in Arizona. His case is only now starting to get national media attention. The guy's name is Daniel Robinson, and he, was last seen driving away from a place, and now he's gone. And so they're trying to find him and trying to figure out what happened to him. And, I hope he's safe. I hope they find him, and it's a misunderstanding, but it's anyway. So that was Joy Reid's take on this, and I just wonder what's happening to us. I watch Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro say that we're lurching toward cultural and societal chaos. And that this is going to get a lot worse before it gets any better, and it may never get better. This may be the downslope to the cultural death of the United States. On that happy note, what do you guys think?
I heard about that guy, the accident person. I don't know his name, but I heard about it like a week ago, a while ago. So in your face, Joy.
I don't understand the need other than to create a distraction from all the other shit news. For Joy to do something like this, she's a DNC operative, and let's create a controversy.
That's not involving the senile president.
Yeah, let's create a controversy. And because it's the topic du jour of everything now, we have to insert race in a manhunt. Mm-hmm. It's like you can't have something. I swear to God, if the Sioux City disaster happened now, the first question out of Joy Reid's mouth was, how many black people were killed and why did you put them in a position to be killed?
Why were they in first class?
That's how she would ask the question, because she is an apparatchik, and
and a race baiter,
and her single duty is to the narrative.
Yeah,
she could give a merry fuck about truth. She could give a merry fuck about Gabby Potito. She doesn't give a shit about any of this. Joy is in it for Joy and the DNC.
And not want to talk about the fact that the French ambassador left.
Yeah, well, or any of the other bullshit that's going on. It's kind of like, oh, did we kill a bunch of kids? Oh, sorry.
Only 7.
It's just 7 little brown kids. Who cares about them?
Something I found mystifying about this is that I still have not heard anybody, except for me, make the comment that what is it about YouTubers killing their women? I was thinking about Russian Deadpool. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
He shot.
Oh, yeah. That's something we need to check on. Was this guy a male feminist?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a bald.
No. I mean, what is his position on feminism? If he's a male feminist, then
yes,
then you might as well just go ahead.
That was the big claim to fame of Russian Deadpool. His channel had hosted a debate between Sargon of Akkad and Christy Winters, and he described himself as a male feminist. And even after the killing, he described himself as a male feminist, which
on shrooms.
On poisoned mushrooms. Yes, not just shrooms, but poisoned mushrooms.
Yes, which caused him to lose his mind.
Whatever happened to him? Did he ever get?
Yeah, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and he's cooling his heels in the medium security prison that is not very far from Columbine High, as a matter of fact.
He shot his girlfriend in the face and got 40 years and is in minimum or
no, he's in medium security. Yeah.
Okay, from now on, I'm taking care of the law.
Well, he also, that was part of his plea agreement. He pled guilty, and that part of his plea agreement was where he was going to go. So,
good. In 40 years, he can kill another.
Yeah.
No, it was just the number of male feminists who were involved in sexual assault and, Me Too stories and then violence against women and that kind of thing. It's always very interesting how these hypocrites, political convenience position holders, end up.
Yeah, the guy that allegedly but totally did kill Gabby they were pulled over in Utah.
But we do seriously mean allegedly, Susan.
Yes, Susan.
Allegedly.
The 911 call was released, and it was a witness saying that he was smacking Gabby around.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
Maybe he was just trying to swat mosquitoes. What if mosquitoes are dangerous and deadly?
In the tape, he actually talked in the jail tape. He talked about flies being all over, sucking his blood or whatever he said.
Oh, good.
So it could be.
At least he's mentally stable.
I did it.
It's just the cover of not Bill Cosby. Damn it. Orenthal Chase Simpson's book. Yeah. If I did it, and because you got to raise money after everything's been taken from you.
That's right.
Because of a civil suit.
That's probably where Brian Laundrie is. He's out there hunting for the real killer.
He is. Exactly. That's why he has forgotten to mention that part. I don't know. Yeah. I have many hot takes on this topic.
Okay, what do you got, Harry?
I was reminded of something. Well, okay, I know I've told this story before, so I'll give you the short version. There was this woman that I used to work with she was very nice, very bright, just a very, very sweet person, probably in her 30s. She was unfortunately not conventionally good looking. The world was just unkind to her. I mean, she wasn't like a land mammal. She wasn't, she was a nice person. She was a perfectly lovely person, but she just had kind of an unfortunate face.
Yeah.
But I liked her, and I always got along with her pretty well. I didn't work with her particularly closely.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in one day, and I say, where's Susan? That was her name. I think it's okay to mention her first name. said, "Where's Susan?" And I said, "Didn't you hear she died a month ago?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean she died a month ago?" "Yeah, she died a month ago." And I had seen in this place where I worked, where there were a couple hundred, 200-300 people would die occasionally, because, I mean, that's just the way the odds are. And there would be, like, this big cathartic thing that would happen, always. But Susan dies, and nobody says anything, not loudly enough for me to overhear it.
Yeah.
It was a month before I just sort of said, "Haven't seen Susan around. What the hell's going on?"
Oh, she's dead,
She's dead, And I'm just like, the fuck is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Because she has an unfortunate nose and something, you couldn't find the time to be grieving over the fact that, this person's dead?
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with people? And I think people really are just that superficial. If you took Gabby Potito, isn't a Pepito like a pumpkin seed?
It's Potito. Potito, like a little O.
Okay, so she's not a pumpkin seed. Okay,
no, she's not a pepita.
Pepita. Okay, she. If you had everything be exactly the same about the story, because I mean, Gabby probably by LA standards is a solid 6, right? On a scale of 1 to 10. She's a cute girl.
Yeah,
she's a cute girl. And she's young. Eyes. She's young. She's cute. She's skinny. She's living this sort of fantasy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the whole point of what she's selling is her. I mean, I don't know what she was like as a real person, but she's selling this image of herself.
Yes.
That's meant to go viral. So she's got all these people following her. I'll bet you if there was an attractive, dark-skinned girl, every other aspect of the story was the same. Internet influencer, van life, doing this romantic thing, off in these beautiful locations, had the same number of followers. I think there would be exactly as much coverage as there is now. It has nothing to do with the color of this girl's skin. If she was like, a Hollywood 6 with beautiful milk chocolate skin and the same figure and the same everything, people would be responding exactly the way they are now. The problem is that people get kidnapped from malls and drugged and sent into sex slavery. Bad things happen to people all the time. And humans, to just get through the day without losing our shit constantly, have learned how to tune most of it out.
Right.
Every now and then, something gets a hook into our psyche. It is not racism that we ignore, these things that Joy Reid it has come up with, any more so than it's not racism just because we ignore all the other white girls who go missing or young boys or whatever.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to people all the time, and just to cope, we don't think about it. And I sent you 2 links, which I think illustrate the point. Now, there was...
Do you want to talk about Catherine Ann Fiscus?
Yeah, Cathy Fiscus was like a famous case. Was it from the 30s?
It was. She died in 1949.
1849.
1949.
Sorry, 1949. I'm bad with numbers. What do I know? Cathy was playing with her 9-year-old sister Barbara and cousin Gus in a field in San Marino when she fell down a 14-inch wide shaft of abandoned water well. Her father, David, worked for the California Water and Telephone Company, which had drilled the well in 1903. He had recently testified before the state legislature for a proposed law that would require the cementing of old wells. A little irony there. Within hours, a major rescue effort was underway with drills, derricks, bulldozers, etc., giant cranes, 50 floodlights from Hollywood studios. At one point, a rope was lowered to her, but she could not maintain her hold on it and fell even further down the well. After digging down 100 feet, workers reached Cathy on Sunday, April 10th that night. Now, this was a thing that captured everybody's attention.
It was covered on radio, which was something...
That was novel.
It was extremely novel, the kind of coverage it got, and it was the first kind of live coverage of something like that had occurred. Outside of from a disaster like the Hindenburg or something like that was covered live, because it was everybody was there to see it. This was unprecedented. And it certainly set a benchmark for how these stories are covered.
It scarred a lot of people because they said they made the announcement to 10,000 people who'd gathered at the scene. Cathy is dead and apparently has been dead since she was last heard speaking on Friday. I mean, this just messed people up.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time, that things were so connected. It's not like you wouldn't have read about this 18 months later back in the Pony Express days in a newspaper, possibly. But it was new for it to be like this live thing. And now with the internet, with everything being so hyper-connected, and us having this parasocial relationship with Gabby, not me, but other people, it really is a punch to the gut for a lot of folks. And for Joy Reid to come in and decide that she's going to make some sort of racial thing out of this, because it's like, oh, let's not talk about the poor girl who was murdered. Let's talk about me and my feelings and how angry I am that people with brown skin are dying and being talked about.
Oh,
it's like,
okay.
Fuck you.
How utterly classless that is.
It is.
But just to compare celebritartery for a moment. Marilyn Monroe's death from overdose was widely covered. Whitney Houston's death from whatever you want to call it was widely covered.
System poison.
Bath, drug, taken.
Whitney Houston got an awful lot of coverage.
Mm-hmm. And so did her daughter when she did it 5 years later.
Yep. When you have a celebrity-driven culture, like you mentioned, Harry, the parasocial relationship that we have with people that we've never met because of their celebrity status. Dear God, it's wall-to-wall coverage. If it had been, God forbid, one of the Obama children piloting an aircraft that had gone down on its way to the Cape from, was it Teterboro that he took off from?
Yeah, it was Teterboro.
It would have been wall-to-wall coverage like it was JFK Jr.
I think he was headed for Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
He was dropping his sister.
Even though it was death by folly, in his case. It's unpopular to say it, but he did not have the training to be flying that particular night.
With a broken foot.
Well, he probably just lost his horizon, and
he was not. He didn't have enough. He didn't have enough hours on instrument only. He just didn't.
Well, he wasn't IFR at all, was he? He was a VFR pilot, but it was right at dusk.
Yeah, it was at dusk. Foolish.
Yeah.
Flying eastward, where it would be getting darker faster. Hello. And over water where fog comes up in the summer very, very easily.
You also don't have a visual reference, a good visual reference for the horizon. So if you're not looking at your horizon indicator on your instrument panel, you might be sliding sideways into the ground, which is what they eventually concluded happened.
Yeah.
Hey, and look, I found a news article, speaking of visual things. 20 years later, people are still talking about Aaliyah's plane crash.
Yes.
And I don't know, she looks fairly dark-complected to me.
What about the coverage given to Kobe?
Yeah. If we really were a bunch of racists, wouldn't the not 13% of Americans who are African American just not care about this if we were racist?
Yeah.
Which we're not, because a lot of people know about this. I mean, I saw the movie Romeo Must Die. I thought she was great. I was looking forward to the next movie. I haven't seen, was it that Scorpion King or Queen of the Damned or whatever thing. But, she had a lot of promise. I was upset when she died. It sucked.
Yeah. Anybody with that much talent and promise, as you put it, is going to engender it's sympathy and a certain amount of empathy.
And need we mention Need we mention any of the police-involved hoopla that has gone on over the past 6 years and the amount of coverage it gets, as opposed to the amount of coverage, if one wants to play the race game, that some kid laying face down on a damned hotel room floor gets when he's ventilated by the cops?
That's probably fair.
You know, I mean, celebrity is celebrity, whether it's notoriety or, you know, infamy or fame. In this culture, we can't distinguish any longer. We don't make any kind of moral judgments about any of these people. You know, and it's just constant. It's just a constant infotainment.
Well, in support of your point, and actually a comment that Harry made earlier about the superficiality of people. You remember Jessica McClure, the little girl who fell down the well in.
I was thinking that when Harry was talking about Cathy.
That was, in, what was it, 1989 or something? That, no, 1987, that's when it was. And she was 18 months old, and she fell down a well in the backyard. And for 56 hours, rescuers worked to successfully free her from the 8-inch well casing. And they pulled her out of the hole, and the incident occurred here in Midland, Texas. And they developed a plan to drill a parallel shaft to the well where she was lodged and drill another horizontal cross tunnel to rescue her. And they enlisted the help of local oil drillers. And then they had to figure out, how to get through the rock. I mean, there was a mining engineer came in. He helped supervise and coordinate the rescue effort. And they used what was then a new kind of a new phenomenon called water jet cutting. And that was ultimately what they used to cut through the rock and get to her. And she would sing during the drilling. They could hear her singing Winnie the Pooh.
Funny if it was I Will Rock You.
And so, anyway, there was CNN covered the rescue effort, and Ronald Reagan got on the horn and said everybody in America became godmothers and godfathers of Jessica while this was going on. So everybody kind of identified with this. And for a few days, we were all happy. And then I'm watching TV and I see Whoopi Goldberg come on and say, "I'm sorry Jessica fell down the well, okay? But I'm tired of hearing about it. A little white girl fell down the well. Who cares? She's out now. Can we move on?" And she was, playing it for comedy. But it was a little bit of, felt a bit of the same feeling that you're getting from Joy Reid. I think there's a feeling that is coming from people like Joy Reid, Whoopi Goldberg. They're just sick and tired of seeing stories like this about white people and feel like they never see any stories about little black kids.
All right, let's talk
that
about
this
black on
happens to.
black crime and little black kids.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
because-
we don't.
I don't want to
don't
talk
want.
about
We
that.
need to not go down that road.
Yeah.
But the thing that is kind of the capstone of superficiality on this is on May 30th, 2007, USA Today ranked Jessica McClure's life as number 22 on its list of 25 lives of indelible impact.
This was which magazine?
This is USA Today.
Yeah, all right. They're doing
All right,
People magazine kind of thing. I mean, not to be dismissive of this, but I don't with any frequency think of Jessica McClure, and it was impossible to miss this story.
I wonder how many
it had a
of the
happy
editors.
resolution, and you wish her a good life. It's like I don't think every day about Elizabeth Smart.
Well, I wonder how many of those USA Today editors even know who John von Neumann was and what his life was like. You talk about an indelible life.
Oh, no. That doesn't matter, you see.
Is that the kid that was
something called game theory?
Yeah. Nope. It wouldn't.
Executed in the same day as the murder took place that he was too little to make.
Yeah.
And what they gave him the electric chair because he was black, so he had to kill the little white girl. And he couldn't. His head was too small. He was too small, so they had to put books under him so he'd fit for the hat thingy. I can't remember the kid's name.
Oh,
yeah. I've actually seen the picture of him sitting in the electric chair. Yeah, it's actually a true story. It's gruesome.
It's gruesome.
I know it's a true story.
It's absolutely pathetic. We've got a lot of horrible things that have happened in history, throughout history. That's not the point. I mean, the point is this celebritartery is tedious. It's wearing. It actually begins to make you actively dislike people you didn't have an opinion of before they died because of saturation, if you know what I mean. At least that's my response to it. I have never been
becomes
so
tiresome, is what you're saying,
in my fucking life of hearing someone's name as I was Princess Diana's.
Yeah, it becomes tiresome, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, it becomes tiresome, and you cease to care.
Yeah,
your
empathy well gets dried up.
Oh, absolutely, because to be number one, being manipulated like that gets tedious, as well as to watch a bunch of talking heads co-opting other people's grief. It's a lesson I learned after 9/11.
Well, before we move away from this, I was also going to point out that Don Lemon, of course, at CNN jumped right on board with this. Absolutely, Joy Reid is absolutely right, and it made me reflect just for a moment on what mediocre talent there is, what mediocre intellectual talent there is reading our news to us, reading our supposed news. In point of fact, a little more than slanted narrative driven propaganda. Both from the right and the left, depending on which one you want to listen to. I do think, in a general sense, Fox is a little bit more honest, but they can deeply slant their coverage and certainly slant it by what they choose to include and not pay attention to. But I'm just, there just seems to be such a vacuum and such a need for somebody who just puts out the news and does a good job of completely covering news that would ostensibly be of interest to major news consuming groups of people. But until people start to turn away from the vestigial mainstream media, those places don't have a chance. They one of them's going to catch fire, though, I hope, and we will have a source of news, something that will be, we used to call the Christian Science Monitor, which was a Cleveland newspaper, I believe, if I remember correctly. And the Christian Science Monitor was absolutely balanced. It was absolutely neutral on every single story. I mean, it would carry assassinations, and there was no hint of this assassination is bad or anything of the sort. It's just the assassination happened. Here's who got assassinated. Here's the guy who did the killing. It's just the facts only. And we badly need, I think, something like that, or at least I would appreciate that.
It would be nice. Along the same lines, I came across a story today. It was actually on my local news, the NBC affiliate in town, on the Twitter, that said, flood your feeds. The FBI is now offering a $10,000 reward in the case of Mary Johnson, a Native American woman who disappeared in November of 2020. 40-year-old woman who went missing November 25th. She was reported missing on December 9th, actually. She was on the Tulalip Reservation in Marysville, Washington. She was walking to a friend's home and never arrived. And she wasn't reported missing until the 9th of December. But apparently the FBI found this buried under the files of the women gymnasts in the Larry Nassar case. So they apparently have just managed to get around to noticing this guy.
Those girls in the Larry Nassar case, just a bunch of complainers anyway, am I right?
No
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
No frigging shit, because
asshole FBI.
I mean, this case is, look, there are lots of missing people cases, and there is an issue because back in April, Secretary Haaland established a special task force for all the missing cases, kind of that the Bureau of Indian Affairs is a bit entangled with, because it's on res land or, under res jurisdiction, that things like that. And that does complicate law enforcement, because you have competing jurisdictional control over investigation and that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But, as we know, in Canada, there have been issues with Native women being murdered, going missing,
Canada,
that have fallen by, through the cracks. And certainly in part because we have these extra jurisdictional courts and this, that, and the other, and different law governing reservation. We've got some either delay or possible lack of experience among law enforcement, unwillingness possibly to bring in the federal police force that the FBI has anointed themselves as. But,
I thought we weren't supposed to have a federal police force.
No, we aren't.
That was the whole deal.
We aren't.
All the seceding.
The CIA isn't supposed to work on our soil either.
Yeah.
So
Tell
you
that to Mike Flynn.
know how far that ship has sailed away from port. So,
well, they only do it when they really need to.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
That's what they claim.
Trust them.
That's, of course. And I'm very, very happy that we have people with general anxiety disorder being recruited by the CIA. That cheers me up a lot. What you want in the CIA?
Isn't she a furry too?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I do know that she's a person of color, so that might be the cause. Who knows? But the last thing I want to hear is that they've got a general casting call at the CIA for Barney Fifes.
Yeah.
Keep that one bullet in your shirt.
In your shirt pocket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy, I'm gonna get my bullet out.
Because talk about a guy that was as jumpy as a room full of, cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picturing. Generalized anxiety disorder. You walk in, you tap on the door in her office, and she screams. I mean, what? It's like that's just what you want in the people who make the decisions to call in things like, I don't know, drone strikes on Afghan
children,
terrorists that turn out not to be.
Well, getting back to the thing, I think that has anybody heard anything about autopsy report on Gabby Potito?
Just that it was ruled to be homicide.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's her, and it's ruled to be a homicide, but they don't.
There's rumors going around about gunshot wounds.
There are going to be rumors going around about a lot of things until there's an official statement. There isn't anything to go on. It could be, well...
She may have been eaten by zombies, and she may come back as a zombie.
Yes.
Well,
we've got to consider that.
Crime.
Well,
so
I
heard she's pregnant. She tried to kill him, and he killed her.
Yeah, you've heard a lot of things, in other words.
Yeah, and my girls don't believe it, but they're like, you won't believe what they're saying now.
Yeah, well, maybe they shouldn't be paying that much attention to this. Because, the problem is it's going to...
Actually,
again, the celebrity aspect of this. in the
I
event.
want them to pay attention because I want them to see what an abusive relationship looks like.
Yes.
They don't see that in my house.
Yeah, but
I don't want them to ever get in a relationship where the guy smacks the girl around
and stay in the relationship. Yeah. But I mean, you just look at this. Look at this picture. You've got crime stories with Nancy Grace. Everybody's on this. Jesus Christ. Like flies on a cadaver. Quite literally. And the other thing that flies flock to, and that shit.
They discovered her, a few days ago? She just got confirmed. Give the police some time to do their job.
Right, and also, could you try not to poison a jury pool in the event he hasn't gone and capped himself somewhere in the woods?
And also, for the parents' sake of Gabby, hopefully they're staying off the internet.
Yeah, well,
that's all I can pray.
First thing I would do if for friends of mine who lost a kid in a very public case like this is I'd have the power cut to their house. Have them come. Yeah, we're going to a cabin in the woods, I'm very, very cynical about this stuff. I mean,
I hadn't noticed.
If I had my suspicions, I think he may have topped himself. He may be too much of a narcissist to do that, but then again, sometime when the jig's up, the narcissists have to do themselves in because
I think it's very unpredictable. What's up with this guy?
Won't be treated correctly. Yeah, it is. And
I hope he offed himself and the gators ate him before he died.
Well, then who will find the real killer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was the gators.
Well, OJ's in Miami. We can send him into the Everglades to search. I just.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to offer this case up as it's just interesting to see how our society reacts to this. Harry, thank you very much for the links to the two older cases. That was really helpful. What an interesting contrast it is to the way that the America kind of used to rally around and kind of become one in rooting for the successful, hopefully, rescue of somebody. And now we have people on CNN complaining about the people showing sympathy and empathy to this person publicly, and that this person's getting too much ink in this CNN reporter's opinion.
Well,
what a broken society we are.
I think Mike Cernovich made the best point, which is that both Joy Reid and Don Lemon have their own shows.
Yes.
So stop covering it if you don't like it.
Yeah.
But instead you're covering it. And yeah, Jonah?
But they can't have their own shows. They're black.
Yeah, I don't know. Some kind of accident happened.
It's like trying to find a lawyer when you're black, especially a black lawyer.
Yeah, they don't exist.
There's the DMV.
There's a whole thing. Yeah, and the DMV has instructions not to give out identification to black people, too.
It's ironic that considering the vice president of the United States is an African-American lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
She's from Jamaica.
Yeah,
she's an African-American from Jamaica. That's right.
And there's still a white man above her keeping her from reaching those dreams.
Keeping her down.
Keeping her down.
Yeah.
She's technically Indo-Carib, but nobody wants to remember.
And nobody cares about that.
No,
she's don't interfere with a good narrative by introducing facts.
I know.
African American.
Belief is a matter of choice. You choose what you want to be true. Yeah. We choose, we just as white people for so long have chosen to believe that things, obvious frauds like the Wright brothers invented flight that it was not stolen from Wakanda, which was a real place, because belief is a choice, and we choose to believe that truth because that is a better truth than the truth that white people have been putting out for so many years.
It's my lived truth, even though I've only lived it. Only I've lived it in my imagination, but that doesn't matter because my imagination is as valid as reality.
Exactly.
When the guy that played Black Panther passed away from cancer, it was covered widely.
Of course it was, because it was
only in Jet magazine and Ebony and isn't there a black network? BET. It was on BET.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the Jussie Smollett case, for Christ's sake? I mean, if you're talking about people getting coverage, the thing is that
he was the one who was raped at the subway shop by the coven of white Nazi witches.
In MAGA hats, yelling.
This with MAGA hats, yes.
MAGA country,
with Nigerian accents,
right on the lakefront in Chicago.
Make America great again.
After seeing those men, they could have at least banged him up a little.
He did. Don't hit the face. You know, if you just can imagine what the set of instructions were in that meeting.
Keeping the noose around his neck.
I'm pretty. Don't touch it. It's just, you know, you chase down too many cases after a while in this day and age of race hustling. That burn you. The press will get shy of them too. They got burned in Tawana Brawley. They got burned in Dick LaCrosse. They got burned in Jussie Smollett.
There have been a bunch more. I was actually debating bringing that up. There have been a number of cases, and I haven't researched them, but I distinctly recall cases of, like, you know, teenage girls of color going off being teenagers, being dumb, and then covering for, why were you gone for 4 days? Because I got kidnapped by the man. You know, it's like, and then that ends up being complete bullshit.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that black teenagers don't get kidnapped. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that high-profile cases where people are trying to use race to cover up their own poor behavior don't help matters any more so than people who lie about rape and other things. It's really bad because the people that you're hurting are the real victims of stuff like this. I did also want to say that I do think there's a class component to this. I think people probably do have class prejudice. And if it's like John Benet Ramsey, right? Remember, people sort of paid attention to that because it was, we all get interested in the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
And Dad was a millionaire oil man.
Yeah. If it had been some other kid, some Latinx kid who'd gone missing and the parents were, rich jet setter types, doing this thing, I think people would have responded the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Covered, I think.
Yeah, I think class does enter into it because in order to, but this Gabby thing just has that extra layer of the parasocial relationship on top of it. Joy Reid is full of crap. Don Lemon is an idiot.
Yeah.
They're just mad that people were talking about something other than the things they wanted to talk about. And they had a little temper tantrum and said, why are we talking about race?
Yeah. Well, they're mad that people were talking about something other than them.
Joy Reid was Don Lemon's beard.
Yeah, just get Robin DiAngelo on and get her take on it all. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're stopping the rumor and trying to start.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we at Minions of the Zoo are devoted to the truth, Jenna.
Yeah. Yes, and in the news of the recent disappearance of John von Neumann, information is scarce right now, but stay tuned for updates on this fluid situation.
Absolutely. Actually, you made a really interesting point. I wanted to follow up on that. And that is that much of the stuff that is laid at the feet of the races is really more about class.
Yep.
And having to do with wealth and power than it is with race. It may have at one time, maybe even as late as the 60s or 70s, roughly aligned with color, at least in some areas, and that's where this misapprehension is coming from. But point of fact, what people resent is the power that comes from having an advantaged, upbringing or situation. People resent other people who have money, who have the perks and power that comes with money, and it matters very little if they're white, black, beige, brown, or red. Those things matter far, far less than the perception of what class that person is in.
Well, people like interesting people, so there's an element of projection. People say, if I had been born into a family like this, I would do X, Y, and Z. I'd get my G-Wagon, and I'd have a G6, and I'd have all the G things.
Right.
Because that's what you get when you grow up in a rich family. It's like a Cinderella story. People still like that story, and it resonates with folks. So class has everything to do with it. The Menendez brothers was another one of those high-profile cases. They weren't exactly
great example, perfect example. Yeah, but they were perfectly evil.
Yeah.
Did they get transferred to the same prison?
Prison?
Menendez brothers. I heard. Okay, this isn't me trying to start a rumor, but I heard they got transferred to the same prison. They had a no contact rule for years, but
actually, a bunch of TikTok users are leading a push to free them, to get them out of jail, and they're both sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, and they're serving their time down at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, California.
They did get moved together. I do.
Yeah, well, they're at the same prison. That doesn't mean they're anywhere near each other.
But they were not the same prison before.
Can you unfull screen me, please?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I don't want to give everybody the misleading impression that that's
right.
all we're talking about.
I wasn't paying attention to what I should be paying attention to. Hold on here. It's de-bigging you. There you are.
Thank you, sir.
And no, that's a terrible. What they did was just absolutely gobsmacking as far as taking a great situation and turning it into shit.
Sociopathy 101.
Yes, yeah. I mean, they may have the biggest negative delta in lifestyle in the history of people.
Yeah, it's just there have been some remarkable, very public sociopaths, and the Menendez brothers and Bundy.
Bundy's another example.
Really stand out. One of the most darkly entertaining things about Bundy that I recall is the typical suave, convincing, charming, narcissistic sociopath that he was. He
almost sound like you're describing Don Lemon. It's just flashing out.
With fewer corpses, yes.
Yeah.
His attempt to bargain at the 11th hour for his life was so craven. It was so remarkably craven, and the idea that he was afraid cheered me up immensely in a horrible situation.
I know where more bodies are buried. That's nice. We got to shave your head.
Yeah.
Move over to the left, please.
Yeah.
I can tell you more. Okay, sit down here.
All of a sudden, after all the quiet, I can tell you where more of the bodies are.
Yeah.
And just think of how comforting that will be to the victims' families. He tried the psychological and emotional manipulation on the authorities, and they just smiled and said, Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here to punch your ticket, Ted.
Yeah. We're here to make your account current. See what I did there?
Yeah. But it just.
So don't offer any resistance.
The idea that he
it's
was.
time to go home.
The idea that he was indeed a craven coward.
They didn't care what he said.
God,
I got a million of them, folks.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty amped tonight. Yeah. Honest to God, it's just, it's a pathetic consumption of lives world that we live in. Yeah. We're consuming other people's lives, and it's really rather grotesque. I was very much a part of it, as pretty much everybody else was at one point in my life. I actually would read People magazine when I was on break working at the bookstore, and that sense of connectedness that you feel with people that you have never met because they're from the same part of the world or have the same hobbies or whatnot. It's really rather sad when I look back on it. I know the moment I stopped and unsubscribed from People magazine, gleefully threw every one of them in the recycling bin until my subscription ended without even looking at it. And it was when Meg Ryan's new life was celebrated, when she had left her husband and children behind to start an affair with Russell Crowe. And I thought, why am I reading about these trashy people? I don't care if they're cute and they can act. Why am I reading a story celebrating a woman walking away from her children to go fuck a guy?
Yeah.
And what a brave and stunning woman.
Yeah, it was. It was like stunning and brave. Wow. Brave and stunning.
It's a view into Russell Crowe's character, too.
Yes, of course it was. And that's when I began to care not one whit, particularly one way or the other, except for those few individuals who have managed to demonstrate their character, their positive character, above and beyond the trappings of their trade. And those people do garner my attention. The people who can live...
The James Woodses are few and far between, though.
Yeah,
I like James Wood.
They are, but the people of quiet charity and the people of industry that exist within all the glitz and glamour and bullshit of the rules for thee, not for me. Set in Hollywood, speaking of which, wasn't it nice that both the Met Gala and the Emmys were apparently exempt from any mask mandate, but the help had to wear masks.
Well, you don't know where the help have been. They live like animals. You know?
I know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I bet you they had to be jabbed too.
I'm sure they did to have their job.
And being jabbed is good. We think everyone should be vaccinated.
Yes.
Every single day.
Yes, we do, and we're very, very happy that apparently Project Veritas is being memory hold.
Yes. Oh, we haven't got that.
We're nobody's touching that one with a 10-foot pole right now.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Project Veritas, never heard of them.
Yeah, they were trending on Twitter today. I took a quick look and I said, "Oh, cancer," and just ran away because I wouldn't want to wrong think. I also wouldn't want to get sideways of the county commission in Clark County, Nevada, because apparently the Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, showed up at the Clark County Commissioners meeting where they're, of course, trying to suppress people's First Amendment rights in regard to the coup, which is all very, very good, Susan. It's all very, very good. And was assaulted by the security there. They physically had hold of the man, and in his struggle with them, because, good Lord, why wouldn't you be wondering why you had been grabbed by the Gestapo? They basically slammed him into the scanner. That toppled over, and there he was down on the floor with security all around and bystanders being shooed away and people filming it. Makes Clark County, Nevada look even better than we all know Clark County, Nevada really is. In case you don't know, Clark County is the surrounding county of Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, yes.
The one shithole amongst many shitholes that oddly enough, doesn't allow legal prostitution, which is
How
the
dare they?
stupidest thing under the sun for a city the size of Vegas and what Vegas sells. God, it's just the dumbest possible approach to everything. Clark County wants to race LA, I think, to the bottom at some point. Maybe New York too.
Well, are you in favor of them legalizing?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's
For the
kind of the libertarian
for health
point of view.
Well, it's legal in Nevada.
Right. Well, it's legal in some parts of Nevada.
Yeah, but not in Clark County.
Not in Clark County.
Wait,
Yeah.
And so that's where human traffickers can find people.
Yes, Jenna. In certain parts of Nevada, prostitution is absolute. No. It's only in parts.
They let them opt out on locality.
Yeah, it's county by county, I think.
Yeah, it is.
It needs to be all or nothing.
Well, not in Nevada, because that's Nevada. Yeah, the Bunny Ranch is in Nevada, hon. The one that got a lot of play for a while there. But the health and safety of prostitutes being my primary interest in cutting back, most definitely on human trafficking, that is my actual primary interest, because you're a fool, I believe, if you go into prostitution for a living. But that's my own personal moral judgment. Feel free to live your life the way you see fit.
I agree with that.
But there are 10 counties, by the way, in where regulated licensed brothel prostitution is currently legal, and none of them are Clark County.
Yeah.
They're mostly around Elko and Ely, Winnemucca, and I guess around Nye. And Nye County.
I know the Bunny Ranch was within pretty easy driving distance of Las Vegas for a reason. You know, you try to set them up between Reno and Vegas, and you're going to make some money. Because of the gambler shuffle or the visitor shuffle. But
but Las Vegas, Reno,
trafficking. Vegas is a city anyone can disappear in a New York minute.
No,
it is.
But in the large cities in Nevada,
really?
here's
I
what
thought it would be less because their prostitution was legal.
Prostitution is not legal in Las Vegas.
Okay, it's not legal in the large cities. It's not legal in Reno. It's not legal in Las Vegas. It's not legal in the state capital, Carson City.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Vegas. Vegas has a subculture that is kind of remarkable. Just absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
And you cannot miss it. You don't have to find it; it will find you. It's on the Strip. Every one of those guys going with the cards and handing them out for the strippers and that kind of stuff. That's your pipeline to the subculture of Vegas.
Yep.
And it's an interesting place.
Yeah, from public school to a pole.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get lawyers, guns, money, and drugs. From those guys. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. It's hard to tell what makes you feel creepier in a way. Fascinated yet creepy. I mean, it used to be that Times Square was in the running, but that kind of got cleaned up. So yeah, there went the fun there. But
I remember Times Square.
Bourbon Street and the Strip in Vegas are just two absolutely fucking amazing places. Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Just go for the people watching. If
Spud Gun got my Warren Zevon reference. Thank you. Yeah, it's in lawyers, guns and money. Yeah. Thank you, Bud. Appreciate that.
At least it wasn't Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why that song amuses me so much. It must say something about my psyche.
I was just looking at Keyword Am's post in chat talking about limiting their social media because for whatever reason, and that can be a good thing. Just step away from the Twitter machine for a little while. Sometimes I take breaks 20, 30 minutes, and I find it very refreshing.
I've done it for days at a time, and it was glorious.
Yeah.
I have found it very, very difficult to get back into spending the time I spent on Twitter before I went on vacation. Only I go and I check for the major stories now, because I just found that it was I kind of felt petty in a lot of what I was doing on Twitter, and it was how many idiots can you poke fun at in a day? I mean, of course, thousands, because Twitter is where they congregate.
Let me tell you my Twitter journey. Hammer and Sassy sent me something on the 8th and the 9th. I got it today.
You saw it today.
I saw it today.
Yeah. I'm
tonight.
Well, sometimes you can feel. I was just reading Keeper Dams' post. You can feel obligated, particularly if like you're in a. I guess they play these. They have these games that they play online that the kids do now, and you can get into a situation where you're kind of expected to, show up and play, and that becomes a kind of pressure that could really feel like the corners of your world are bending in on you a little bit. And it's different from like saying I'm going to host a show once a week and understanding that you're taking that obligation on and you do that, for however long that lasts. But I can understand the need to step away from that and just have the feeling of that pressure off your shoulders.
I do some online gaming, but it's very, very, very boomer online gaming. It's like hidden object search games and that kind of stuff, where they have created a parasocial deal with it's kind of like clubs or groups or guilds or something like that you can join, and it ups the amount of reward you get within game for doing certain things, and there is a time obligation attached to it, but it's both groups that I have affiliated with are in the low pressure by and large, unless one chooses to pressure oneself.
But I'm curious what the attraction is. What is it about us that we like to feel plugged into the life force that is social media? I mean, say what you want, and it's definitely a mixed blessing. I understand that, but what is it about it that we can't stay away from it?
Why is fast food so addictive for some people?
Is it the same thing?
It is the same thing because they're both basically products that have been specifically designed to tickle the little animal part of your brain up on the inside there, that little bit, the part that gives you all the happy juice. Mm-hmm. That's what Twitter is. It gives you a little squirt of dopamine. It's like you go, oh, look, I matter. I'm connected. I'm part of this thing.
Serotonin hit.
It's basically just like a virtual version of what a cheeseburger full of MSG does for you, and have a side of sugar with that. Scientists have figured out how to manipulate people into buying stuff, whether it's Twitter or fast food.
Oh yeah, the psychology of
that's supposed to be a secret, Harry.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think Gad's dad saw that secret too in his work. But the science, the psychoscience, social science to some extent, social not in like I'm talking about history, political, all the things, but our social interactions, as well as our evolutionary psychology. And I mean, there are highly predictable models out there. I mean, I think it's fascinating that in a woman's estrus cycle, her consumerism can be predicted. I think that's fascinating. It's just certain modern convenience habits that echo prior, more primitive ones. The so-called feathering of the nest. Because a lot of purchasing is done for appearance of home, appearance of self, that kind of thing. And it seems very much linked to the reproductive cycle in women, which I find absolutely fascinating. I think it's very, very interesting. You know how there have been people who have guessed that relatives were pregnant based on behaviors that they would display? Suddenly a great concern for the tidiness of the house or the freshness of the paint or, certain trappings of the nest they begin to fuss and worry about. And you've heard people discuss nesting behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time. And they were onto a reality through observation, not necessarily through rigor of study.
Well, I don't know if that's actually. I think that's when you're expecting a child. You don't have to be pregnant, because I know when, like, Nicholas was coming, I was like, all right.
Yes.
Or Elizabeth.
Oh, no. But women's consumerism is linked to their estrous cycle. It's a pretty strong link, Jenna. Gadsad's done a lot of work on this, and he's like, you can pretty much tell when a woman's gonna start her period based on her buying. It's just there. It is an echo of much more animalistic behavior. There's a lot about our
correlation, not causation.
Strong, very strong correlation.
There are actually. I looked into that, and there is actually pretty strong mathematical correlation between some of the behaviors they describe. Mm-hmm. And I forgot what the items were, but they're strange things like stocking up on toothpicks and just oddball things that you wouldn't associate with any particular thing, but that's absolutely proved out by the statistics. Not only that, the correlation actually got tighter the more data they gathered.
Yes,
and that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and I mean, for someone who basically moved from the science, the psychology, evolutionary psychology, into the business realm, like Gadsad did, because of seeing the power of the information that was out there. It's applicable information. Like Harry said, how to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do.
Can I ask Terry a question just to know how, because Melbourne had a really bad earthquake. I don't know if he lives in Melbourne.
No, he doesn't.
He'd know anything about it? Of course.
Well, Australia's not that big.
Yeah. Yes.
No. It's not an
a continent
it's not
or
a
anything.
continent either.
No, it's an island.
Teacher.
Just an island.
Yeah.
Well,
and most of it's Bali.
But I also heard about the people that got arrested for trying to bring too much KFC in from.
I just looked at Google Maps and it's still there, so I think we're good on the earthquake.
Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne is still there.
Sure
Melbourne.
Were okay.
Melbourne.
I don't even hear most people who deal with
Melbourne
call it Melbourne anymore.
The Melbourne conspiracy.
When I hear Melbourne, I think Lord Melbourne.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Well, it's still pronounced Melbourne.
It's Melbourne.
No, it isn't.
That's what I'm saying. The same thing you are.
No, you're not.
It's almost like Melvin.
Melbourne.
Yeah. Melbourne
Fun.
is the way that I've heard people from there say it. But they're all it's like San Pedro or Darien.
How do you say Rayburn, Massachusetts, Jenna?
How do I say what?
Rayburn, Massachusetts. Rayburn.
Or Leicester.
It's not Leicester.
No, I was going for Raven. I was going to ask you if you said Raven like everybody else.
Oh, that's from that poem. Quote the Raven nevermore. I remember that.
Raven?
No. Rayburn.
Rayburn.
Okay, if you were reading it in a sentence, Miss, I don't have any R's except when all of a sudden I want to use them. How would you normally say that?
Okay, can you type it out somewhere?
Sure.
Type it in chat.
Well, Spudgun just did. Rayburn.
I don't know what that is.
It's Rayburn, Massachusetts.
Rayburn.
Yeah. Melbourne.
You all have faults.
I didn't even understand that. What?
I didn't either.
Okay.
You all have faults.
Jenna starts speaking Japanese.
It's Jenny's.
Yeah, Jenny's.
I was going to say it's a little bit of Yugoslavian mixed with a little bit of, I think that was actually Korean.
Yeah.
No, it's actually Arabic.
Pashtun.
I get it from my
Pashtun, yeah. It's just Pashtun.
Pashtun?
Never mind. It was like Cuba, putting the R on Cuba that Kennedy did. It used to crack me up how he said Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah, you're right, but that's not how Jack Kennedy said it.
I've heard Pashto spoken.
Although we both have attitude.
It sounds like a yak burping.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he spent a lot of time in Florida. Maybe that was his issue with it.
Yeah, maybe where that came from.
Yeah.
There's the possibility.
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
No.
But how about this for a limerick? Trudeau and his team played a game. For virtuous reasons, they claim. Canadians noted annoyance, but voted, and everything ended the same.
I like that. It's quite well done.
And much cleaner than any of the limericks I know.
I know, no kidding. I don't think I know any clean ones anymore.
So I'm just curious. Do you guys think that Canada outsmarted itself? By the way, that was not my limerick. I found that online. But do you think Canada outsmarted itself?
I think if you ask the question, why did what's his name? An idiot. Trudeau. Why did Trudeau call for this election to begin with? What did he hope to gain?
He wanted to gain a majority. Yeah.
And what did he end up doing? He ended up making no progress whatsoever. So by any standard, I think it's a big fail for him.
Yes.
I don't think anybody really expected him to get booted out. I'm a little saddened that Viva Frei wasn't successful.
Yeah.
Because it would be good to have more smart, intelligent people in Canadian government.
Party of Canada just isn't a great name for a party.
No.
It has a bit of the goose step to it.
In Canada, being an incumbent is a huge advantage, evidently.
It is here too.
Well, it is here too, but I mean, I think it's just overwhelming in some parts of Canada. It's just almost insuperable.
Yeah, I think there's some ridings there, just like there are in Great Britain, where you're just not going to overcome that name recognition and status quo ante desire that the sheeple have. I know everything else is changing. I don't want this to change.
Yeah. I'm just reading that says Trudeau, leader of the Liberal Party, gambled on a snap election, hoping to capitalize on his government's performance during the pandemic. What? In the event, the results from Elections Canada suggest voters were not sufficiently impressed to give Trudeau a majority, but nor, it seems, did they punish the Liberals for calling an early elections. Preliminary results with 98% of the votes counted showed that Trudeau's Liberals came in with 158 seats, and they needed 170 to win a majority. So they got actually one more seat. They had a net gain of one seat, but it wasn't enough to give them a majority government. Now they have to find a minority. They have to form a minority government, which will mean that many of the votes that come up, like passing a budget, for example, will be confidence votes. And if that fails, you could have a vote of no confidence, and that could trigger an election.
Which will cost another $600 million or whatever this one did. There was very low turnout. There was low turnout in urban areas. According to Dr. Functional, this one was poor turnout.
Yeah. Only 2 people voted in Manitoba. No, I'm just kidding. It was 14.
And both of them left hoof prints instead of
rode their reindeer down from
the ungulates have been in to vote. Now you get out and vote. It's just the Christ. I felt the need to use ungulate in a sentence this week. So
all of you missed that Terry's mom was in the earthquake.
Oh, Terry's mom was in the earthquake. I didn't have my face off of.
She's okay.
Chat. Good. I'm glad your mom is okay, Terry. How severe was that? The earthquake.
It was a 6 something.
Yeah.
I'm actually
it's
checking.
5.9. 5.9 earthquake. Okay, it was 80 miles from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and
Melbourne. We've reached the point of saying
Melbourne. And
okay, look, you two.
Yeah, and as I said, and that's on like the bottom part.
Yeah.
You know the which is
the part that's been waving goodbye to Tasmania for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was evidently, I guess, just east of Melbourne, and sounds like they were, it was pretty okay. I don't know how much damage was done. Let's see, an earthquake of magnitude 5.9 struck near Melbourne in southern Australia on Wednesday, according to Geoscience Australia. In a tweet on Wednesday morning, the Victorian State Emergency Services Twitter account said that the blah, 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 that it was east of Melbourne. And please be patient as lines may be busy. Or originally, blah, 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 they thought it was 6. They downgraded it to 5.9. And videos on social media showed at least one building suffered some minor damage, and power lines were disrupted in the central business district of Melbourne, which is Australia's second largest city, where some people could be seen on the streets following the quake, all talking about the earthquake, no doubt. Melbourne residents described their shock and surprise as houses across the city began to shake in a city which has not had an earthquake of similar size since Diane Abbott visited there. There have been no reports of injuries so far.
Which is nice. It was about 10 kilometers deep, so about 6.6 miles below the surface.
Are we still talking about Diane Abbott?
And there was well, that's where people feel her walking above them.
Yeah, the Abad
Probably about 10K down.
Mom said it was really scary, but luckily no one was in the house that got hurt. No property was damaged. And no property was damaged.
Good.
Thank you, Terry. Good to hear.
Second worst subject right after speech.
Spud says it cost $33 million of improvements.
Nice. Oh, God. There was
played, Spud.
There was a nice little aftershock of 4.1 about a half hour. About 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Later, I brought up the USGS.
Well, 5.9 will get your attention.
Shit, no kidding.
Yeah, well.
I've been at the epicenter of a quake about that size once, and it was just one huge sharp jolt at the epicenter. None of the reverberation stuff. I did not know what the hell happened. I thought a 747 had crashed, like, right next to me or something. It was just this amazing thing.
If you spend enough time in California, particularly the part where Harry is, I believe, talking about, you will experience earthquakes. It's a part of living. You can't.
Well, I was in the Santa Cruz Mountains, probably about half mile from the San Andreas.
I was going to say, if you were up in those mountains, that's like, fault line. They're like little subfaults that go all through those mountains off the San Andreas.
Yeah, the one we had in Louisa back in 2011, which is a good bit of weight. It's 38 miles northwest of Richmond, was a 5.8. And it did a lot of damage in Louisa, and interestingly enough, a good bit of damage in Vienna, Virginia, which is a lot farther away. It was felt as far away as Toronto. It was only 6 kilometers deep.
When was that?
So this was in 2011. Yeah, we had
the one that knocked out.
Yeah, Creed was laughing because there was a whole group of guys visiting from Africa, I believe. It was either Africa or the Brazil contingent. We're in Richmond, and they got a hurricane, tornado, and earthquake all in the same week. Because we had Hurricane Irene, which spawned tornadoes, and then we had this earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. It was just wonderful. Splendid August in Virginia, but
man, that's unusual. And what was that quake?
5.8.
5.8.
Yeah,
I actually was in a 6.8 in Seattle. I was teaching a class on systems administration of you'll be happy with this, of the Unix part of a G3 phone switch in 2001.
Yeah,
and that was a 6.8, and it almost took me off my feet. That's the strongest quake I've ever been near an epicenter. Yeah.
Friend of mine was in Tacoma when that happened. And
they were in Tacoma. They were even closer to the epicenter than I was. I was up in Redmond, which was probably 30, 40 miles
north of there,
farther away from the epicenter. The epicenter was down by Olympia.
Yeah,
that was fucked up. That really scared those people, and those people don't scare.
How big was the one that hit San Francisco in like the 80s?
Well, it didn't hit San Francisco.
Yeah,
it's one of my pet peeves.
Right.
It actually happened closer to Santa Cruz.
Right.
And that was a 6.9.
It was. They were. It was
Loma Prieta.
Yeah.
But they were broadcasting a baseball game, World Series game, and that's why people think it happened in San Francisco. The epicenter was in San
also
Francisco.
because the road collapse was in San Francisco, so it was that's what drew so much attention.
Well, the Cypress structure was a terrible design to begin with, because even when I was a little kid, I thought, I don't want to be here. I would die in an earthquake.
Man, that was my commute highway every single day when I lived aboard the Kansas City. I drove from Oakland across the Bay Bridge over to Hunters Point when we were put in there, and I drove on the highway every morning and every evening. And driving out, that's when you were underneath it. And,
that lower deck sucks.
That lower deck really did suck.
It did suck.
You're a lot safer on the bridges. But yeah, I mean, major earthquakes are a big deal. It's almost unfathomable to me to think about what the Alaskan earthquake was like, or a number of what the 9s are down further south, like along the Pacific coast of South America.
Right.
There are places in the world that produce way bigger earthquakes. A 5.9 like I said, it'll get your attention, but
you want to explain the scale?
Well, it's a log scale thing, so it's a lot. Every individual unit is a much stronger earthquake. I can't remember if it's 10 or 100.
It's 10 times, 10x.
By
10x.
It's just a straight up log scale.
By log
Yeah,
scale,
it's a straight face 10 log.
He means logarithmic. So the increase in power by 10th of a measurement. So from 5.8 to 5.9, a 5.9 is 10 times stronger than a 5.8.
Yeah. And going from like a 5.7 to a 6.0 basically means double the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the energy doesn't propagate out linearly in quite the same way.
It depends on the type of
surface.
Depends on the type of earthquake too, because like the earthquake in Louisa was called a dip slip, and it worked like a blanket snap in that it was felt in one direction much more strongly than it was felt in another. And that's why it was felt as far away as Toronto. That it was felt in Atlanta is not all that strange, but that it made it to Toronto is peculiar in that people noted it, not just merely the seismographers noted it, but that people felt it. To go that far away, and that's because it was shallow and the type of quake it was. Some quakes are like that god awful bomb right that you described, right underneath your feet, like you think what just fell out of the sky next to my house. More like a mortar landing, than a shaky rattle and roll. And then they're the undulating types, which is
that's
kind
usually
of
when you're a little further away.
Yeah, we've had those from not far from where the Louisa earthquake took place. There's a fault line that runs along the Devil's Backbone, and it's every now and then, some of them have been only booms. That's all you hear.
There's a not obvious thing about earthquakes. So if you have a slip fault like the San Andreas, big old fault, right? So the other side of the ocean, the ring of fire that basically goes all around the Pacific, that involves all these, goes all the way up to Alaska and down through Japan and then back up and around and then up the South American coast. That big ring of shifting continental plates. Well, the San Andreas, when it breaks open, when there's an earthquake, it isn't just like there's like a snap at the epicenter. What produces the shock is a section of the fault actually moves. So in the case of a large earthquake, it could be many kilometers or many miles of the thing that actually moves. So it isn't. So the epicenter is a useful thing to talk about, sort of where it's located, but the actual fault movement happens over a longer section of the fault. And of course, the shock waves come out, from every place that's moving. So that partially explains why the Loma Prieta, even though the epicenter was around Soquel, which is near Santa Cruz, it's like 60 miles from San Francisco. The whole sections of that fault moved, so there was more involvement closer to San Francisco than you might think. I'm probably not explaining this very well.
Well, but in that ring of fire that you're talking about, that surrounds the Pacific Ocean, basically.
Yeah.
A slip fault can move a substantial amount of water very suddenly.
Yep.
This causes something called a BFW, which is slang for big wave. And these big waves, when they collide with a landmass, and they will roll all the way across the ocean, all the fucking way, like big giant comber comes in, and the tsunamis just do an amazing amount of damage. That's a tremendous amount of force.
Yeah.
The peculiar thing. I'm going back to the Louisa one because
I'm just wondering if there's going to be a tsunami off of the one in Australia on account of it being so near the coast.
They didn't list any warnings on the USGS. There was nothing posted. And
Yeah,
they do that when there's a tsunami warning posted. So that's good. Going back to the Louisa one, not that it was anywhere near as severe. It was felt by more people than any other quake in United States history, which is very, very intriguing. But it's because of the perceived intensity, because it being an intraplate earthquake was there's a Mercalli intensity scale of earthquakes, and it was perceived as an 8, which is a severe. It just really rocked the hell out of people and rocked some structures off their foundations. That was most of the damage, was foundation damage. It was severe. It was very interesting what I felt, because I did have to widen my stance. I was in a grocery store. And at first I thought it was heavy machinery moving behind the building, because it had that kind of rumbling feel through your feet. And then I noticed the sneeze guard over the olives swinging back and forth. And that's when my brain latched into what I was feeling. And that's about the time I had to widen my stance slightly because of how much I was swaying. And we got less of a impact from it down here than north of here. So it must have been impressive for the people. Louisa about 100 miles north, moving in that direction, because it really did some damage up around Vienna, Virginia, which is a good distance away.
Where's the one in Haiti?
The one in Haiti? Where is it?
In 2010.
Yeah, they've had so damn many. You're talking about the severe one with.
Yeah, the one that they were people.
But they had another pretty bad one this year.
Yeah, I know they had one.
You just kind of shake your head and go, God, that's just wrong.
Yeah, it
Those
is.
Poor people.
They are on the wrong side of that island.
They're on the wrong island.
They should just take over the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, well, they should just go to another island. I'm not kidding you. The Dominican Republic does not take the brunt of these things the way Haiti does.
Yeah, I know.
It's just the nature of the mountain range, the mountains, the volcanoes that divide the two sides of the island is such that just ick.
I remember I had a year where I did a bunch of consulting work down in Puerto Rico, and the way that they talk about the Dominican Republic people are just, they consider them scum. And I was asking them about this. I said, well, why? Well, they, they're unlettered. They're, there's a real stratification of who's on top. So the Puerto Ricans think the Dominican Republic guys are garbage. You talk to the DRs, which is what they call them down there. You talk to a DR, and they talk about the people from Haiti the same way. It's interesting, and the Puerto Ricans won't have anything to do with anybody from Haiti. They'll accept some DRs who come over, economic refugees, basically onto Puerto Rico. But if somebody from Haiti comes over and they're identified as Haitian, they ship them right back. It's a fascinating sociology of and it really has to do with how relatively sophisticated they are, how intellectually sophisticated they're perceived to be, or where they come from. It's just
also PRs, which some people call Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, that is a slur, by the way.
Yes,
anymore.
But DR isn't.
DR is strangely is not. That's used in common parlance in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
It is.
Do unto others as was done unto you, as is ever the case in the world.
I didn't make the world. I just try and live in it.
Yeah, I know. I climbed up out of the pit. Therefore, I shall shit on the people on the ladder,
Right.
just like happened to me.
Right,
Because
exactly.
that makes the world a much better place. Yeah,
I got
New
two of
York
my
City is a microcosm of that. If you watch as each immigrant wave moved in and the trashing of each subsequent wave of immigrants that moved in, there are two Harlems for a reason, folks. But the thing that amuses me is
Spanish Harlem.
Puerto
Thank you.
Ricanians aren't as big in baseball anymore as Dominicans are. And you know, that's
It's not the religion that it used to be in Puerto Rico.
No, it isn't. No,
And it really has.
Sucking off the government tit has replaced it.
You're not wrong.
I know.
You're actually not wrong.
I know. It's why I could not understand why so many people developed amnesia when Donald Trump got in trouble for the things he said about Puerto Rico. I was like, oh, please. This has been well known. It is not a secret about Puerto Rico for decades. It certainly was not a new observation he made. It's just orange man bad, mean word tweets, must be wrong thing. And the fact that all the government corruption was uncovered, revealed, people were thrown out of office, facing prison time, things like that. No. You wouldn't want to bear out there being any truth to what was said. Yeah, also don't forget the whole Spanish-French thing. That's another.
Oh my God, yes.
That's a whole nother, you know, the one thing the French did manage to do is fuck their colonies up more than Spain.
Yeah.
Which is actually it's a thing of note historically.
Do you find it interesting that both the French and the Spanish hate the Basques?
Yeah. I guess it's their, it's the subculture of both of them, the Untouchables.
Mm-hmm. They consider them a problem.
Yeah, those gross mountain people with their funny language.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which means at some point the Basques had something they wanted and they weren't able to get their hands on it, which would be the territory.
Yeah, that was what it was the territory. Exactly right.
And the Basques have held on to it, maintained their cultural identity, and annoyed the shit out of both countries.
Well, they discovered dynamite.
Yeah, just like Spain is very annoyed by Catalonians.
Right.
They don't like that, and that's was made abundantly clear all over social media.
Catalonians think they're better than anybody else.
Welcome to Who the World Hates.
Identity groups tend to do that.
Yep.
You know, and they are a hyper identity group.
Are you saying that Joy Reid thinks she's better than I am?
Yes.
Yes. In the words of Anna, whatever her name is.
Casparian?
Yes.
Well, that or the Ice Queen.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be both. She's fucking better than you.
It's her turn, Skep.
It's her turn.
She's making sure the world doesn't stay pale, male, and stale.
Time for you to sit down.
I just compared her to a
back of the bus,
blue-eyed,
back of the bus.
Queen.
Bottom rail on top this time.
Yeah,
I'm not going to repeat the rest of that as it would get us kicked off of YouTube, but you know,
it was a good run. Just get us kicked off.
Yeah, let's think
social media was a mistake.
Yeah, it's not time for a permanent break from social media.
Let's go back to Usenet.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
I really liked MySpace.
There were a lot of good things about Usenet. I'll have you know.
Usenet was the best.
It was absolutely.
We were so much cooler online.
It was text-only internet, Jenna.
Yeah, no
like
riffraff.
AOC? No, wait, that's the lady.
It's where the elites go
Not
to
AOL,
meet.
you mean? No.
Thank you.
AOL, yeah.
Same
There's
difference.
still people with existing AOL accounts. Lol. You know, it's a little like MySpace. You know, it's just one of those.
You know that the guy who started MySpace sold it for $500 million. So he was not a fool.
Smart folks.
You know, everybody says, "Well, he sure screwed that up." Yeah, he did a terrible job. Mission not accomplished. I'll take my $500 million and go home.
A billion or a million?
$500 million. B as in boy.
500 million.
What's his name? Is he single? I may not be.
Is he dating anybody? His name is David MySpace.
Luckily, I'm Mormon, so you know.
Yeah.
Oh, good God.
Mormons will launch their daughters at you.
Spudgun asked you a question, Skep. Do you remember IRC?
Oh, yeah.
He says with a weary sigh.
I remember way too much.
Isn't that a root beer?
No, that's IBC, sweetheart.
IBC.
I know. I
That's
just
what you-
was making sure you
Get a new writer.
attention.
Tom Anderson was a founder of MySpace. Kiever Dam was on it for us, research department.
Thank you, Kiever Dam. We're kind of running down a little bit now, and it's been about 2 hours, so I think it's probably time to wrap this up. So, anybody have anything that's just bursting out they would like to
Hi,
get out there? Okay, what's that, Jenna?
Hi, Gio.
Yeah. Saturday's going to be fun. I think we're going to have a good show on Saturday. It's been an interesting week.
Not if I have anything to do with it. Sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I gave Prospero some homework, which she sort of volunteered for. So yeah,
sort of got volunteered.
Yeah. Trying to spread the suffering around because I think people sort of enjoyed doing the special feature stuff.
Never give me homework.
That's true. I didn't give you any homework. But did you want to talk about frozen aircraft carriers? That was Skep's thing. So we've actually been having a lot of fun on Saturdays.
Yes.
Overall, I think it's been a pretty good time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Good. Well, I hope everybody will come over and join us on Saturday. That's a good time. 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern.
Join us every night on the Minions.
And 8:30 or whatever it is on Pacific time. But come out and join us. That Saturday show is a good show.
Yeah. And you can listen from your alt account too. So you log in with your alt account and then you listen, but with the mute button pressed. We'll take those views. We'll
take every view we can get. Where we are trying to gin up the views, and I will whore myself out for it. Please come and watch us, guys. So we do appreciate seriously everybody in chat coming out. We do this for you, and do it happily. But thanks for coming out and listening to us. Thank you to my panel, Prospero, Harry, Jenna, my friends. Thanks for coming and hanging with me for a couple of hours here on Tuesday night. We're going to close it down now, and we'll do it again next week. And once again, come and join us Saturday night. It's going to be big fun. And that's going to do it for tonight. The zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.
Harry.